August 1941. A cramped attic room in a nondescript house on the outskirts of London, the air thick with the scent of damp plaster and cigarette smoke. Rain patters against the slanted window, blurring the view of blackout-shrouded streets below. You can almost feel the chill seeping through the thin walls, the weight of secrecy pressing down like the fog rolling in from the Thames. Juan Pujol Garcia sits at a battered wooden desk, his fingers hovering over a typewriter's keys, the machine's black ribbon coiled like a serpent ready to strike. He's a slight man in his late 20s with sharp features framed by dark hair slicked back, his eyes, dark, intense, darting to the single bulb swinging overhead. Dressed in a rumpled suit that hangs loosely on his frame, he exhales slowly, the smoke from his half-smoked Gauloise curling toward the ceiling. This is no ordinary writer crafting novels. This is Garbo, the man who will weave a web of lies so intricate it could ensnare an empire. Born in Barcelona in 1912, Juan had always been a dreamer, a hotel manager by trade, who despised the fascism creeping across Spain like a shadow. The Spanish Civil War had hardened him, watching friends vanish into Franco's prisons, dodging the chaos of bombed-out streets. But it was the thunder of World War II that ignited his fire. From neutral Spain, he'd devoured newspapers, piecing together the Nazi menace. Hitler's blitzkrieg had rolled over Europe, and Britain stood alone, a beleaguered island fortress. Juan couldn't sit idle. He approached the British embassy in Madrid, offering his services as a spy. Rejected, coldly, efficiently, they saw a civilian with no training, no connections, just a fervent patriot with a hotel ledger for a resume. Undeterred, Juan turned to the enemy. In 1941, he slipped into Lisbon, Portugal's neutral hub, buzzing with spies and smugglers. Posing as a pro-Nazi sympathizer, he contacted the Abwehr, Germany's military intelligence. "I am willing to serve the Reich," he wrote in a fabricated letter, his heart pounding as he mailed it from a shadowed post office, the salty Atlantic breeze whipping through the streets. The Abwehr bit. They saw potential in this eager Spaniard, codenamed Arabelle. They trained him, sort of. A crash course in invisible ink, microdots, and dead drops, all via mail, since he couldn't travel to Germany. Juan absorbed it all, his mind a sponge for deception. Back in Lisbon, he began building his phantom empire. No real agents, of course, just inventions born from his imagination and a dog-eared atlas. His first sub-agent was a name plucked from thin air, Agent 1, a Welsh nationalist named Dorothy O'Grady, the fictional Irish Republican working in a Liverpool factory. Juan typed frantic reports. Dorothy observes increased shipbuilding activity, morale low among workers. He fabricated details with meticulous care, weather reports from imagined docks, troop movements gleaned from public BBC broadcasts, twisted just enough to seem insider knowledge. The attic in London comes into focus again. Juan, now safely in Britain after the SIS, MI5 Secret Intelligence Service, finally recruited him in 1942, pauses, lighting another cigarette. The typewriter clacks resume, echoing in the dim room. His handler, a stern MI5 officer named Tommy Harris, had brought him here to this safe house, codenaming him Garbo for his theatrical flair. "You're an actor now," Harris had said, his voice gravelly from too many late nights. "Play the part, and we'll win this war." Juan's fingers dance across the keys, crafting a message to his Abwehr handler, Federico Gonzalez, in Madrid. Urgent. From Agent 3, a Brazilian diplomat in Glasgow. Rumours of convoy preparations for North Africa, ships loading at Clydebank under cover of night. Agent 3 didn't exist. Juan had recruited him weeks ago in a letter describing a chance meeting at a neutral embassy party. The details poured out, the clink of glasses, the diplomat's accented English, promises of loyalty to the Axis cause. Juan even invented backstories, Debts, grudges against Churchill to make them breathe on the page. Downstairs, the safe house creaks under the footsteps of other agents. But Juan works alone, the isolation fueling his creativity. He imagines the Germans poring over his dispatches in their Berlin bunkers, maps unfurling, officers nodding approval. Little do they know, every word is a mirage. Juan's network sprawls across his desk in neat files. Agent 4, a Venezuelan student in Birmingham spying on munitions factories. Agent 5, a Polish refugee in London with access to War Office leaks. 27 in total by year's end, each with code names, salaries drawn from Abwehr funds, which Juan pocketed gratefully, and reports that painted Britain as a hive of discontent and vulnerability. The rain intensifies, drumming like distant anti-aircraft fire. Juan leans back, rubbing his temples. Deception is exhausting. One slip, and the whole house of cards collapses. But the thrill, the knowledge that he's turning the tide, keeps him going. That summer of 1941, his early reports had already sown confusion. The Germans, starved for intelligence on the isolated British Isles, lapped it up. No one questioned the lone Spaniard directing this vast web. Why would they? His information arrived punctually, laced with just enough truth to sting. Overheard radio chatter, newspaper clippings, rephrased as secrets. As the clock ticks past midnight, Juan seals the latest dispatch in an envelope, addressing it to the Portuguese courier who'll smuggle it out. He stands stretching and gazes out the window at the darkened city. London endures, its spirit unbroken despite the nightly sirens. Garbo's war has just begun. In the shadows of this attic, a single man is outwitting the Abwehr's finest, his phantom agents whispering lies that will echo across continents. But doubts flicker in his mind. What if they verify? What if one agent is exposed as fiction? He pushes the thought away, crushing his cigarette underfoot. For now, Berlin believes, and belief is the most dangerous weapon of all. The courier arrives at dawn, a nondescript man in a Macintosh, taking the envelope without a word. Juan watches him vanish into the misty streets, his heart racing. Another thread in the web, another step toward D-Day's grand illusion. Little does he know this network will grow, twisting fates from Lisbon to Normandy, fooling the Führer himself for years to come. Spring 1942. A dimly lit briefing room in the bowels of St. James's Court, London, where the air hangs heavy with the aroma of strong tea and polished leather. Flickering gas lamps cast long shadows across oak-panelled walls, lined with maps pinned like battle scars, Europe's coastlines etched in red ink, arrows pointing to phantom threats. You can hear the muffled rumble of tube trains below, a reminder that even in this underground sanctum, the war pulses through the city's veins. Juan Pujol Garcia, Garbo to his handlers, paces the room, his polished shoes clicking softly on the threadbare carpet. He's gained a bit of weight since arriving in Britain, the steady rations filling out his once gaunt frame. But his eyes still burn with that unquenchable intensity. A fresh suit, courtesy of MI5, fits him better now, though he tugs at the collar as if it chafes against his Spanish roots. Across the table sits Tommy Harris, his MI5 controller, a wiry man in his 40s with a mustache like a broom bristle and a perpetual squint from deciphering codes. Harris sips from a chipped mug, steam rising like battlefield smoke, while a junior officer, young and earnest with ink-stained fingers, scribbles notes. "Garbo," Harris says, his voice a low rumble, sliding a dossier across the table. "Your network's paying dividends. The Abwehr's hooked. They've upped your budget. 5,000 Reichsmarks a month for your agents. Keep the reports flowing, but layer in some truth. We need them to trust you blind." Juan nods, flipping open the file. Inside, sketches of his inventions. Agent 6, Fred, a fictional tramp in Dover with ears to the ground on Channel defenses. Agent 7, a sultry nightclub singer in Cardiff peddling whispers from drunken officers. He'd birthed them in the quiet hours of his attic, drawing from BBC newsreels and pilfered gazettes. Fred saw concrete barriers rising along the cliffs last week, Juan murmurs, testing the lie aloud. Gun emplacements too, under moonlight to dodge the RAF spotters. He adds a sensory flourish in his mind, the salt spray stinging Fred's eyes, the groan of cranes against the wind. Harris leans forward, tapping a cigarette on the table. Good, but escalate. The Jerrys are probing for invasion signs. Feed them decoys, troop build-ups in the south, away from the real show. The real show, of course, is still a distant dream. The cross-channel assault that will crack Hitler's Atlantic Wall. For now, Garbo's the smokescreen, his phantoms, the fog. Upstairs, back in the attic safe house, Juan resumes his craft. The rain has given way to a rare, sunny afternoon. Golden light slanting through the window, illuminating dust motes dancing like paratroopers. He lights a cigarette, the match flaring briefly, and pulls out his typewriter. The keys clatter like Morse code as he composes for Agent 8, a made-up Welsh coal miner named Di, burrowed in the valleys near Swansea. Di reports. Munitions trains rumbling through the night bound for Portsmouth, guards tripled, but whispers of low fuel stocks. Juan pauses, exhaling smoke, imagining Di's calloused hands black with coal dust, the acrid tang of the pits filling his lungs. To lend authenticity, he weaves in a real tidbit, a recent coal shortage headline from the Times, twisted into sabotage rumors. By evening, the network swells. Agent 9 emerges, a fictitious Indian student in Oxford, Ravi, with contacts in the colonial office. Juan types feverishly. Ravi overhears debates on Empire troops redeploying to Egypt, morale cracking, Indians chafe under British boots. He fabricates a recruitment scene, a rainy quad at the university, Ravi huddled under an umbrella, sharing anti-colonial rants over cheap sherry. The Abwehr would love this, divisions in the Commonwealth, ripe for exploitation. A knock at the door startles him. It's Harris, unannounced, carrying a tray of sandwiches and a bottle of sherry. "Can't have you starving on fantasies," he grunts, pouring a glass. They sit by the window, the city skyline dotted with barrage balloons, like silver whales in the twilight. Harris eyes Juan appraisingly. "Your last batch fooled them proper. They rerouted U-boats based on your convoy sightings off Liverpool. Cost them 2 subs to our depth charges." Juan sips the sherry, its warmth spreading through him like validation, but doubt lingers, a shadow in his chest. "And if they cross-check, send someone to verify Di or Ravi?" Harris waves it off. The Abwehr's stretched thin, Russia's bleeding them dry. They trust their sources, especially one as prolific as you. Just keep the web tight. As night falls, the blackout curtains drawn, Juan delves deeper. He invents Agent 10, a rogue Royal Navy rating in Plymouth, leaking submarine pen coordinates. The report details creaking docks at low tide, the slap of waves against hulls, officers barking orders in the fog, tensions high, mutterings of desertion. To balance the deception, he includes a kernel of truth, a minor dockyard fire from a news clipping, amplified into Axis sabotage. Word count climbs in his mind, dozens of pages dispatched via couriers to neutral Portugal, then on to Madrid. The Abwehr's replies trickle back, effusive, promotions, bonuses, even an Iron Cross nomination whispered through channels. Juan pockets the funds, funneling some to his family in Spain, the rest into his growing legend. Midnight brings a wireless crackle from the set in the corner, BBC announcing Allied gains in North Africa. Juan smiles faintly, knowing his early dispatches muddied German supply lines there, diverting panzers to ghosts, but exhaustion creeps in. His eyes burn from the lamp's glare, fingers cramped. He stands, stretching, and gazes at the moonlit rooftops. London breathes quietly, its people huddled in shelters, unaware of the spider in the attic spinning threads that bind the enemy. Down the hall, another agent, a real one, handling radio traffic, nods as Juan passes. No words exchanged. Secrecy is their bond. Back at his desk, Juan seals the night's work. An urgent wire from Agent 11, a fictional French exile in Brighton, spotting phantom landing craft drills. Waves of them under searchlights, testing for Calais, not Normandy. He imagines Berlin's war room, dim chandeliers, generals hunched over intercepts, Hitler pacing with his dog. "Our man Arabelle delivers again," they'd say, never dreaming the agents are air. The courier will collect at first light, vanishing into the dawn mist like a spectre. As Juan drifts to sleep on a narrow cot, the city's distant hum lulls him. His network now numbers 15 strong, each phantom a dagger aimed at the Reich's blind spots. But the game intensifies. Rumors of enigma breaks, allied eyes on his mail, one false note and the illusions shatter. Yet in the quiet, he feels the pull of destiny, the weight of empires on his shoulders. Garbo's war escalates, lies begetting truths on the road to liberation. The phantoms whisper on, unchecked, unraveling the Nazi grip, one fabricated report at a time. Autumn 1942. The war room at Bletchley Park, buried deep in the Buckinghamshire countryside, where the air tastes of chalk dust and overheated machinery. You can hear the ceaseless whir of Bombay machines, their rotors spinning like frantic clocks unraveling secrets, while typists clack away under the glow of shaded lamps. Outside, leaves crunch underfoot on the gravel paths, the first chill of approaching winter nipping at the edges of woolen overcoats. This is the nerve center of Allied code-breaking, a hive where Enigma's whispers are bent to the Allies' will. But today, the focus shifts to a different kind of cipher, the human one named Garbo. Juan Pujol Garcia, Garbo, arrives by unmarked staff car, the engines rumble fading into the rustle of wind through ancient oaks. He's bundled in a heavy greatcoat against the damp, his breath fogging the air as he steps out, briefcase clutched like a talisman. Tommy Harris waits at the entrance, a thermos of coffee in hand, his face etched deeper by months of strain. "Quick brief," Harris mutters, leading Juan through iron gates and down corridors lined with listening posts, the faint scent of ink and ozone clinging to everything. No time for pleasantries. The tide of war turns faster now, with Rommel's Afrika Korps reeling under Montgomery's hammer at El Alamein. Inside a secure annex, away from the main huts, they settle at a scarred oak table strewn with intercepts and maps. A lantern hisses softly, casting flickering shadows that dance like elusive agents on the walls. Harris spreads out a sheaf of Abwehr telegrams, translated fresh from the cribs. "Your phantoms are gold, Garbo. Berlin's swallowing whole. They've redeployed reconnaissance flights based on your sightings of dummy airfields in East Anglia, wasted fuel on ghosts." He points to a red-inked line tracing phantom convoys Juan had spotted via Agent 12, a fictional Scottish fisherman named Angus, his reports laced with the briny reek of North Sea gales and the creak of trawlers straining against swells. Juan leans in, his dark eyes scanning the pages, fingers tracing the fabricated routes. Angus saw them loading at Aberdeen, tanks under tarps, headed for Norway, not Africa. He'd crafted that dispatch in the dead of night back in the London attic, the typewriter's glow his only companion as sirens wailed faintly in the distance. To sell it, he'd folded in a real weather report, squalls delaying real shipments, twisted into deliberate deception. The Germans bit, diverting Luftwaffe squadrons northward, leaving the Mediterranean skies clearer for torch, the upcoming invasion of North Africa. But Harris's squint deepens, a furrow between his brows. "Close shave last month. Abwehr queried Agent 7, the singer in Cardiff, wanted verification on her officer contacts. We fed them a backstop story through a cutout in Lisbon." Juan feels a knot tighten in his gut, the coffee turning bitter on his tongue. Agent 7, Lila, was his favorite invention. A raven-haired chanteuse with a voice like velvet, crooning jazz in smoky clubs while eavesdropping on tipsy pilots. He'd imagined her sequined gown catching the footlights, the clink of glasses masking whispers of squadron rotations. No real Lila, of course, just ink and imagination, but the query chilled him. "What if they send an agent?" Juan asks, voice steady despite the pulse hammering in his ears. Harris shrugs, lighting a woodbine, the match's flare illuminating stacks of dossiers. "They won't. Overstretched. Stalingrad's a meat grinder. Your network's their lifeline. Why cut it?" He slides over a new assignment. Blueprints of inflatable tanks and wooden gliders, props for the deception game. "Build on this. Have your agents report build-ups in Kent, pointing to Pas-de-Calais. Make it urgent. Troops massing, supplies stockpiling." Juan nods, visualizing Agent 13, a made-up Cockney docker in Dover named Bert, his rough hands scarred from ropes, eyes squinting against harbour fog. Bert'll see the lot, landing craft bobbing like corks, Yanks drilling on the beaches under floodlights. And back in London by dusk, the city shrouded in fog rolling off the river, Juan retreats to the safe house. The attic feels smaller now, walls pressing in with the weight of expanded lies. He sheds his coat, the fabric heavy with countryside mud, and fires up the stove for tea. Steam rises from the kettle, mingling with cigarette smoke as he unpacks the briefcase. Maps unfurl across the desk. Coastal outlines scribbled with sub-agent codenames. The network's ballooned to 22. Agent 14, a fictitious Basque exile in Manchester, feeding tales of factory sabotage. Agent 15, an invented German defector posing as a waiter in Whitehall, dishing gossip from ministerial dinners. The typewriter beckons, keys worn smooth from use. Juan cracks his knuckles, the pop echoing in the quiet, and begins. From Agent 16, Elena, a Spanish nurse in Birmingham General Hospital. Wounded soldiers murmur of transfers to southern ports. Overheard a colonel, "All for the big push across the channel, Calais way." He paints the scene vividly, the antiseptic sting of wards, Elena's white cap, starched crisp, bending over beds with bedpans clattering, catching fragments amid moans and morphine haze. To ground it, he slips in a true detail, a hospital expansion from the papers, recast as preparations for invasion casualties. Hours blur as the lamp burns low, wicks sputtering like a distant flare path. Agent 17 takes shape. Karl, a pretend Austrian engineer in Coventry, inspecting blitzed ruins by day, spying on rebuilds by night. Coventry's churning out dummy vehicles, tanks that fold like cards, meant to fool Jerry Photo Recon. Juan exhales smoke, envisioning Karl's toolkit clinking, the acrid bite of solder in ruined streets where ghosts of the Blitz still linger. The Abwehr would salivate, proof of British trickery but aimed wrong, luring eyes to the narrowest straight crossing. A floorboard creaks downstairs. Harris, arriving late with sandwiches wrapped in greaseproof paper. He eats standing, crumbs falling like flack. "Heard from Madrid, your Iron Cross is official. Wear it in dispatches, boosts credibility." Juan chuckles dryly, pinning the imaginary medal to his mind's eye. But tension simmers. A wireless in the corner crackles with news of Torch's landings in Morocco and Algeria. His early misdirections, phantom supply dumps in Greece, had tied up German reinforcements, buying Montgomery time. As midnight tolls from a distant clock tower, Juan seals envelopes, wax dripping red under the flame. The courier, a shadowy figure in fedora and scarf, collects them at the back door, vanishing into the blackout like smoke. Juan lingers by the window, fog pressing against the glass, muffling the world's roar. Doubts resurface. Agent 18, a fabricated Welsh farmer near Pembroke, reporting aircraft assembly in barns. Too bold. The Abwehr's praise flows unchecked, funds wiring through neutral banks, but one probe could unravel it all. He pours a nightcap of sherry, the liquid amber in the lamplight, and toasts silently to his phantoms. Berlin's strategists pore over his webs in lamplit offices, Hitler thumping tables over reliable Arabelle. No checks, no doubts, yet the network pulses, lies layering like camouflage nets, steering the Reich's gaze from real shores. In this attic forge, Garbo hammers deceptions that will forge D-Day's shield, one invented whisper at a time. The war's hinge creaks open, and his illusions oil the pivot. Winter 1943. A fog-shrouded dawn over the Thames embankment in London, where the river's dark waters lap against mossy stone walls, carrying the faint tang of coal smoke and diesel from distant factories. Street lamps flicker out one by one, their sodium glow yielding to the pale light filtering through low clouds, while the first commuters hurry past, collars turned up against the biting chill. In the distance, Big Ben chimes solemnly, marking the hour as if tolling for the fallen, a reminder that the war drags on, relentless and unforgiving. Juan Pujol Garcia, Garbo, stands at the window of his attic safe house, now upgraded to a modest flat in a Georgian terrace off Baker Street, the building's brick facade scarred by shrapnel from a long-ago raid. He's dressed in a woolen cardigan over his shirt, sleeves rolled up, a pencil tucked behind his ear like a general's baton. The room has evolved with him, the battered typewriter replaced by a sleek Underwood, stacks of dossiers organized in wooden crates, and a wireless radio humming softly in the corner, tuned to neutral broadcasts for inspiration. Steam rises from a chip teapot on the sideboard, mingling with the ever-present haze of his Gauloise, the ashtray overflowing like spent shell casings. Tommy Harris bursts through the door without knocking, his overcoat dusted with frost, carrying a leather satchel bulging with classified memos. "Garbo, we've got movement," he says, his breath visible in the cold air, voice urgent as he shrugs off his coat. Torch succeeded. North Africa's ours, but the real game's afoot. Shaf's green-lit fortitude, your phantoms are the linchpin. Shaf, Supreme Headquarters, Allied Expeditionary Force, the nerve center plotting the invasion. Fortitude, the grand deception to convince Hitler the blow would fall at Pas-de-Calais, not Normandy. Juan feels the weight settle on his shoulders, heavier than the fog outside, as Harris unrolls a map across the desk. France's coastlines inked with arrows, dummy army icons clustered in the southeast. Juan pours tea, the china clinking softly, and hands Harris a cup. "Tell me how to spin it." His accent clips the words, a reminder of the Pyrenees he'd crossed years ago, fleeing Franco's grip. Harris sips, grimacing at the bitterness, then launches in. "Build the illusion of 1st U.S. Army Group, FUSAG, massed in Kent. Have your agents report tanks rolling in, airfields buzzing, make it feverish, imply imminent launch from Dover." Juan nods, his mind already birthing reports. Agent 19, a new phantom. Mabel, an invented land girl in the fields near Folkestone, her waif uniform muddied from harvest drills, eyes wide at columns of Sherman tanks rumbling past hedgerows, their treads churning earth like thunder. By midday, the flat warms under a weak sun piercing the clouds, casting striped shadows through the blinds. Juan settles at the desk, the chair creaking under him, and begins typing. The keys strike with precision, each clack a step in the dance of deceit. From Agent 20, Jack, a fictional Royal Artillery spotter on the cliffs at Ramsgate, observed Yanks disembarking at night, thousands with jeeps and half-tracks clogging the roads. Overheard officers, "Eisenhower's set for spring, straight at Calais." He elaborates, the salt wind whipping Jack's greatcoat, the metallic screech of landing craft ramps dropping into the surf, flashlights bobbing like fireflies in the blackout. To anchor it, Juan draws from real maneuvers, a recent exercise in East Anglia, Details gleaned from Harris's briefings, relocated southward to lure the eye. The network thrives, now 30 strong, a sprawling fiction fed by Abwehr gold. Agent 21 materializes. Hans, a pretend German POW, turned double in Liverpool, witnessing troop ships loading at the Mersey docks under arc lights, crates stamped with invasion gear. Juan imagines the scene, the oily sheen on the water, cranes groaning like wounded beasts. Hans's heart pounding as he slips notes into a dead drop behind a warehouse, the reek of fish guts masking his fear. Morale high, Patton's in command, barking orders like a bulldog. Patton, the fiery general, a deliberate red herring to draw German panzers to the wrong coast. Harris returns in the afternoon, this time with a projector and reels of film, grainy footage of inflatable decoys, rubber tanks that wobbled in the wind, wooden hawser gliders propped in meadows. They watch in the dim room. The machines whir, filling the air like a squadron overhead, light flickering across their faces. "Your reports will make these real in Berlin's mind," Harris says, pausing the reel on a mock landing craft, its plywood hull splintered. Juan absorbs it, filing away details, the canvas bellows of fake tanks sighing as they're inflated, crews in GI uniforms drilling with broomsticks for rifles. By evening, he incorporates them. Agent 22, Ivy, a made-up typist in GHQ Southeast, typing manifest for 50, Rausen men bound for Calais, supplies for a 1-million-ton lift. Night falls early, the blackout plunging the city into velvet darkness, broken only by the occasional sweep of a warden's torch. Juan works late, fueled by black coffee that scorches his throat, the radio murmuring updates on the Italian campaign, allies pushing up from Sicily, thanks in part to his earlier diversions tying up Axis reserves in the Balkans. But tension coils in his chest, the Abwehr's queries grow sharper. Last week, a probe on Agent 14, the Basque in Manchester. Harris had quashed it with forged photos from a darkroom in Soho, grainy shots of a meeting in a pub. The actor posing as the agent nursing a pint. A courier arrives at 10, a woman this time, her heels clicking on the stairs, scarf pulled tight over her hair. She takes the bundle of dispatches, letters in invisible ink, microdots hidden in punctuation. Without a word, slipping out into the misty streets where ARP wardens patrol with rattles. Juan watches from the window, the fog swallowing her form, his pulse steadying. Berlin receives these via Madrid, where his old handler, now promoted, praises Arabelle's invaluable network. No checks, the Reich's intelligence stretched across fronts from Tunisia to the Eastern Front, trusting the spider's web spun from a London garret. As the clock strikes midnight, Juan leans back, rubbing his eyes, the room heavy with smoke. Doubts whisper, what if a real agent stumbles on a dead drop meant for phantoms? He crushes the thought, lighting another cigarette, the flame illuminating his face, lined now, etched by 2 years of nocturnal labor. The phantoms multiply. Agent 23, a fictional Norwegian sailor in Hull, reporting submarine pens stocked for channel ops. Agent 24, an invented Jewish refugee in Bristol, overhearing RAF briefings on bomber runs to soften Calais defences. Downstairs, the building settles with creaks and sighs, neighbours long since evacuated or adapted to the siege. Juan pours a final sherry, the glass cool against his palm, and toasts the shadows. His lies have already cost the Germans dearly, Luftwaffe wasted on phantom threats. U-boats sunk chasing ghost convoys. Fortitude builds, layer upon layer, with Garbo at its heart. In Berlin's map rooms, officers plot against illusions, Hitler raging at imminent attacks that never come. The network endures, unchecked, its fictional heart beating stronger as spring approaches. Normandy waits in the wings, the greatest stage for Garbo's grand performance, where phantoms will turn the tide of empires. The fog lifts slightly outside, revealing stars like distant signal flares, promising dawn's deceptions yet to unfold. Spring 1944. The bustling docks of Southampton, England, where the Solent's choppy waters slap against barnacle-crusted pilings, carrying the sharp brine of the sea mixed with the oily tang of diesel engines idling in the harbour. Gulls wheel overhead, their cries piercing the clamour of cranes swinging crates high above, while workers in oil-stained overalls shout orders amid the creak of ropes and the distant hoot of tugs manoeuvring through the mist. It's a hive of feigned frenzy, the air thick with the illusion of impending invasion, though the real armada hides further west, its secrets guarded by the fog and the tide. Juan Pujol Garcia, Garbo, stands at the edge of the quay, his trilby hat pulled low against a stiff breeze that tugs at his overcoat, the fabric whispering against his legs. He's ventured out from the Baker Street flat for this, his first field trip in months, accompanied by a plainclothes MI5 escort who blends into the crowd like a shadow. Juan's eyes, sharp as ever, scan the scene. Rows of landing craft bobbing in formation, their riveted hulls gleaming under the weak sun, while soldiers in khaki drill on makeshift piers, rifles slung over shoulders, boots thudding rhythmically on wet planks. But these are decoys, part of Operation Fortitude South, the grand charade to convince Berlin that the hammer will fall at Pas-de-Calais, the shortest hop across the Channel. Back at the flat by midday, the journey's salt lingering on his skin, Juan sheds his coat and lights a Gauloise, the match's sulphur bite cutting through the room's musty warmth. Tommy Harris is already there, pacing like a caged fox, his moustache twitching as he unpacks a satchel of fresh intel, Luftwaffe recon photos, smudged with grease pencil marks showing dummy airfields in Kent, gliders lined up like dominoes under camouflage nets. "They're buying it, Garbo," Harris says, his voice a gravelly whisper, slapping a telegram on the desk. "Your reports have them shifting divisions. 15th Army dug in at Calais, panzers idling in the Low Countries. Keep the pressure on. D-Day's weeks away." Juan nods, exhaling smoke that curls toward the ceiling like a signal plume, and pulls out the Underwood. The network's at its peak now, 37 phantoms strong, each a thread in the tapestry of lies. He starts with Agent 25, a new creation. Sid, a fictional lorry driver hauling supplies from London to Dover, his cab rattling over potholed roads, the dashboard littered with empty fag packets and a thermos of stewed tea. Sid reports, endless convoys clogging the A20, Shermans by the 100, fuel Bowsers trailing exhaust like dragons, Yanks cursing the mud, Patton's flag snapping in the wind. Juan weaves in sensory grit, the rumble vibrating through Sid's bones, the acrid fumes stinging his eyes, overheard banter about hitting Jerry where it hurts, straight across from Dover. It's drawn from the Southampton drill he'd witnessed, transposed eastward to stoke the illusion of Fusag's might. The afternoon wears on, sunlight slanting through the blinds in golden bars that warm the desk's scarred wood. Agent 26 emerges. Bridget, an invented Irish barmaid in a Folkestone pub, pouring pints amid raucous laughter from off-duty GIs, the air heavy with ale foam and cigarette haze. Bridget overhears, brass talking beach assaults, tides charted for Calais, Mulberry harbours prefabbed in sheds. One colonel sloshed, let slip the date, early June. Juan imagines her wiping sticky counters, ears pricked to slurred confessions, the jukebox blaring Glenn Miller to drown out secrets. To lend bite, he folds in a real scrap. Weather forecasts from the BBC, twisted into storm delays, pushing the show to the full moon. Harris interrupts with sandwiches, ham on thin bread, the mustard sharp on the tongue, and a flask of whiskey to chase the chill. They eat by the wireless, which crackles with coded bulletins on Anzio's stalemate in Italy, where Garbo's Balkan ghosts had siphoned German troops, leaving the boot vulnerable. "Your webs saved lives already," Harris mutters, wiping crumbs from his lapel. Luftwaffe's probing the wrong skies, wasted sorties over East Anglia, chasing your phantom squadrons. Juan sips the whiskey, its burn steadying his nerves, but a flicker of unease stirs. The Abwehr's replies grow fervent. Last dispatch praised Agent 19, Mabel the land girl, for spotting radio vans in orchards, relaying fake orders. No verification yet, but the stakes climb. Eisenhower's planners watch Garbo's output like hawks, every lie calibrated to hold the 15th Army in place. By dusk, the room dims to twilight hues, the Thames's distant murmur filtering up through the floorboards. Juan presses on, fingers flying. Agent 27. Victor, a pretend signals corporal in a Kent bunker, hunched over valves amid the hum of generators, sparks flying from faulty wires. Victor intercepts, coded traffic spiking, Eisenhower to Montgomery, all systems for bodyguard, Calais primary. Crews sweating over landing tables, scales for 3 Jerusalem ships. He paints the tension, the bunker's damp concrete chilling Victor's back, the Morse chatter like frantic heartbeats, a single bulb swinging overhead, casting jittery shadows. Grounded in truth, a leaked exercise signal from Harris, rerouted to scream imminent assault. Night deepens, the blackout sealing the windows like a tomb, broken only by the desk lamp's pool of yellow. Agent 28 takes form. Greta, a fictional Danish au pair in a Canterbury manor, minding officers' children while dusting portraits of long-dead lords, the house echoing with piano lessons and tactical murmurs. Greta catches. Dinner talk of feints, Normandy a diversion, real thrust at Pas de Calais with Patton leading, maps on the billiard table, pins marking beachheads. Juan evokes the scene, silverware clinking on Wedgwood, Greta's apron starched, slipping notes into her bodice amid the scent of roast beef and pipe tobacco. The Abwehr would devour this, internal leaks confirming their biases, no thought to probe the au pair's existence. A knock echoes. The courier, punctual as clockwork, a gaunt man in a worn mackintosh, eyes darting like a ferret's. Juan hands over the sealed packets, invisible ink drying under his breath, microdots embedded in stamps. The man vanishes down the stairs, footsteps fading into the night's hush, bound for Portugal's neutral shores and then Madrid's eager hands. Juan lingers at the window, the city a black void pricked by warden's lamps, his reflection ghostly in the glass. Exhaustion tugs at him, eyes burning from the strain. But exhilaration pulses too. The knowledge that his phantoms dictate panzer deployments, Luftwaffe patrols, Hitler's very rages in the wolf's lair. Harris lingers, pouring a nightcap, the sherry's aroma rich and comforting. "One more push," he says, clinking glasses. "D-Day's the curtain raiser. Your network holds the applause." Juan toasts silently, the liquid warming his core. But doubts gnaw like rats in the walls. What if a German agent lands, sniffs out a dead drop's emptiness? Agent 29 brews in his mind, a Welsh poet in Swansea, versing coded dispatches on troop tides to Calais. But he shelves it for dawn. The flat creaks with the building's breath, neighbors' radios murmuring faintly through vents. As the clock chimes 2, Juan extinguishes the lamp, the room plunging into darkness save for the cigarette's ember. Outside, a breeze rattles the panes, carrying whispers of the Channel's roar. Berlin's war rooms buzz with his fictions, generals repositioning ghosts to counter ghosts. The Führer thundering for more defences at the narrowest point. No checks, no cracks, the phantoms endure, their unchecked whispers steering the Reich toward ruin. Normandy looms, a shadow on the horizon, where Garbo's grandest lie will bloom, turning deception into deliverance. The night holds its breath, the web taut, ready to ensnare the dawn. June 6, 1944. The cliffs of Normandy, shrouded in pre-dawn mist rolling off the English Channel, where the sea churns with white-capped fury, its salt spray stinging like shrapnel against exposed skin. You can taste the metallic tang of impending rain on the wind, hear the distant thunder of engines, thousands of them, vibrating through the earth like the heartbeat of a colossal beast awakening. Below, black silhouettes of landing craft slice through the waves, their prows slicing foam as paratroopers huddle in the holds, rifles clutched tight, faces pale under steel helmets. This is Utah Beach, one of 5 spearheads piercing Hitler's Atlantic Wall, the real invasion unfolding in secrecy while the phantoms howl diversion elsewhere. Juan Pujol Garcia, Garbo, waits not on those bloodied sands, but back in the Baker Street flat. The room a cocoon of tension amid London's uneasy quiet. The blackout curtains are drawn tight, but slivers of moonlight seep through, illuminating the desk strewn with half-finished dispatches and a cold teapot, its leaves stewed to bitterness. He's in shirt sleeves, collar unbuttoned, a Gauloise burning low between his fingers, ash flaking onto maps marked with red pins, Normandy unmarked, the focus locked on Pas de Calais, 150 miles east. Tommy Harris paces nearby, his pocket watch ticking like a fuse. The air thick with the scent of stale smoke and fresh ink. The wireless hums faintly, tuned to BBC for the coded signal. The long sobs of the violins of autumn, the passphrase confirming the assault's launch hours ago. "They're in," Harris whispers, his voice cracking with restrained triumph, glancing at the clock. 3:15 a.m. Juan nods, exhaling slowly. The smoke curling like the Channel's fog. His phantoms have done their work. Now comes the test. In Berlin, the Abwehr's night shift pours over overnight wires from Arabelle, the latest from Agent 30, a fictional radar operator in Dover named Ted, his console flickering with blips of massed fleets steaming toward Calais under cover of storm clouds. Juan had typed it yesterday, fingers blurring. The hum of valves warming, Ted's eyes watering from the glow, urgent Morse to HQ about Eisenhower's Armada, 5 Schuh-Zeren vessels strong, Patton at the helm. Sensory lies, the deck's pitch in imagined swells, the klaxon wail piercing the gale, GIs seasick over rails. It was the crescendo, designed to hold the 15th Army in place even as real troops stormed Omaha's bluffs. Dawn breaks grey and sodden over London, rain pattering against the window like suppressed machine gun fire. Harris brews coffee, black as oil, its aroma cutting the chill as they huddle over intercepts. The first reports trickle in via secure line. Beaches secured at a cost, thousands fallen, but the lodgment holds. Rommel's panzers meant to crush the flanks idle in Calais, lured by Garbo's web. Agent 31, birthed in the night's frenzy. Lena, an invented switchboard girl in a Kent command post, plugging lines amid the buzz of frantic calls. Lena overhears. Delay in the weather, assault scrubbed for tonight, but Fusagi poised for the 7th. Calais, beaches prepped, mulberries floating off Dover. Juan had envisioned her. Curls pinned under a headset, the crackle of crossed wires, superiors barking about the big one postponed, twisting Eisenhower's real weather woes into a faint postponement. By midday, the flat pulses with activity, runners darting in with pouches of decrypted Abwehr chatter. Harris reads aloud, his mustache quivering. Führer's furious, demands 15th Army stay put. Your Arabelle's gold, no movement without confirmation. Juan feels a surge, hot and electric, chasing away the night's fatigue. His network, now 40 strong, unravels the Reich. Agent 32, a phantom Welsh quartermaster in Portsmouth, inventorying endless ammo dumps for the Calais push. Agent 33, a made-up Luftwaffe defector in Eastbourne, feeding tales of dummy airfields swarming with Spitfires, drawing fighters away from Normandy's skies. No verifications. Berlin's too frantic, Stalingrad's ghosts and Italy's quagmire draining their skepticism. Funds still flow, Iron Cross gleaming in dispatches, Juan pocketing the Reichsmarks with a wry smile, the irony bitter as the coffee. Afternoon brings euphoria laced with dread. The wireless announces the invasion publicly, Churchill's voice gravelly over the airwaves. Allied armies. Established a second front. Harris claps Juan's shoulder, the impact jarring. You held them, Garbo. 15th Army's pinned, panzers rusting while ours roll inland. But Juan's mind races to the aftermath. He types urgently, the underwoods clatter drowning the rain. A warning from Agent 34. Otto, a fictional Abwehr plant turned loyal, confirming the Normandy landings as a sideshow. The real thrust still Calais-bound. Otto reports from a dead drop in Dieppe. Diversion only. Few SAG masses for the kill shot. Hitler must reinforce east. Evocative deceit. The drop's damp earth under moonlight. Otto's hands trembling as he buries the note. The channels roar, masking his whispers to a cutout. Evening falls heavy, the city stirring with hushed cheers from pubs, blackout pierced by victory bonfires in distant parks. Juan steps out briefly, the rain soaking his hat, streets alive with whispers of beaches and breakthroughs. Back inside, Harris uncorks sherry. The corks pop like a champagne salute deferred. They toast silently, glasses clinking amid stacks of Phantoms files. Dorothy, Fred, Mabel, all air now, their lies etched in history. But cracks show. Abwehr queries spike. A probe on Agent 7's Cardiff club. Harris quashes it with forged telegrams from Lisbon. Actors posing in photos. Pints raised in mock toasts. Midnight brings vindication. Secure teletype spits confirmation. German reserves trickle to Normandy, but the bulk, 19 divisions, remain chained to Pas-de-Calais, Garbo's spectres their jailers. Juan leans back, cigarette spent, the room hazy as a battlefield after smoke clears. Exhaustion claims him, but pride swells. A hotel manager from Barcelona, outfoxing the Abwehr for 3 years, his unchecked web turning D-Day's gamble into triumph. Harris lingers, voice soft. You've saved more lives than a division, mate. The Phantoms did it. As the rain eases to a drizzle, Juan gazes at the darkened skyline. Big Ben tolling the hour. Berlin reels, Hitler raging at illusions. His reliable Arabelle the dagger in the dark. No one checked. Belief blinded them. The network fades now, agents silenced in final dispatches, defections, arrests, convenient deaths to cover tracks. Juan crushes his butt, the ember dying like the Reich's delusions. Normandy blooms into liberation, Garbo's legacy woven into the tapestry of victory, a single spinner of yarns who fooled an empire. The war turns, empires crumble, and in the quiet flat, the typewriter stills, its final clack echoing into peace.